students. Okay. Well, good evening. Thank you so much for joining me at Jack Straw. This is a beloved institution for me and many others. And of course, this is a program of Humanities Washington, which is another amazing statewide organization. And this presentation slash conversation about trees, hi, welcome, come on in, is part of the Humanities Washington Speakers Bureau. And these are talks that Humanities Washington provides across the state. And so I have had for a while a fascination with trees. I've been writing about trees. I published a book in November. I have a new book coming out in next spring. And the talk comes out of my experiences both writing and thinking and teaching about trees. So that's what we're doing today. And I've titled the conversation Green Expectations. Of course, this is a pun on Dickens' Great Expectations. But yeah, that's what it is. And since we're a small group, I think it would be easy just to introduce ourselves. I'm Claudia Castro Luna. I am a former Washington State Poet Laureate. I'm the first civic poet of the city of Seattle. I am community literary person, and I'm the interim director for Hedgebrook, which is a women's writing retreat in Whidbey Island. So, and I'm a board member of Jack Straw, and I'm also the curator for this year's Jack Straw Writers Program. So I wear many hats. So why don't we go around the room and just share our names? And like, I'm interested because we're a small group. We could hear like what drew you? What drew you to this conversation or this talk? Should we start with you?
Sure. I'm Kelly Martineau, and I always enjoy hearing you speak and read, and then when I thought it was about trees, that is something that I'm kind of waking up to as well. So
awesome, awesome. Well, welcome. Thank you.
I'm Heather, and I am a writer and musician, and I think a lot about trees. Actually, I've written some pieces of music about trees.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And I'm just dipping my toes in poetry, so it's really appealed to me.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Heather, welcome.
I'm Johanna. I heard about this from my friend Gabriella, and I've just been meaning to go to more poetry and writing events, and I've been thinking a lot about nature and been really inspired in the spring.
Yes, it is the time.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks.
I'm Brooklyn. I heard about this through my partner, Gabriella.
Oh,
and
this is so nice to meet you.
yeah, and I teach language arts. I'm a librarian this year, so I'm always looking for like opportunities to learn more about the literary world. And I've always loved nature and just anything to do with being outside and trees and feeling inspired by nature. So
Yes, this
kind
is
of
wonderful. It's great to meet you.
And I'm Gabriella. I feel like all I'm doing is constantly writing about trees, and so this felt like the perfect moment to come and learn more.
Well, and you're one of this year's Jack Straw writers, and you wrote a libretto about a wonderful sequence about trees. Yeah, and I will make a pitch for our Jack Straw writers May series, which I think it's one of the best reading series in our city. So every May, the first 3 Fridays in May, people come to this very space to hear the Jack Straw writers, the anthology of the program for that year. And Gabriella will kick us off this year. She's going to be the first person to read, and it'll be an absolute treat to hear you and also your entire cohort. But we're starting with we started with water, but with trees too. So I invite you all to join us the first Friday in May. So with that, let's get get started. I'm excited. Is this, whoa, this is not moving. Shouldn't this just move along here? See, for some reason my computer isn't moving along. Huh.
Is it in presentation mode?
Oh, here we go. Let's see. It should. Okay. There we go. I am wondering if for each of you, if there is or has been a special tree in your life, a tree that you befriended, or a tree that you sought when you were a kid, or I don't know, maybe you had your first kiss under a particular tree. So I want you to take a few minutes and just think of, very specific particular trees, and just conjure that tree in your mind. So let's take a minute for that. All right. So let's do some sharing. Gabriella, you want to start?
Sure. I went on a really long walk in the Cotswolds with some friends of mine, and one of their friends who had recovered from breast cancer had done the walk herself previously, and on her walk she found this beautiful old tree that was all like knotted and gnarly, and told us to go find it when we did it ourselves. And so it took us like quite a few hours out of our way to find it, but we finally did and sat under it for a couple hours, and it was just like a beautiful moment of like connection and feeling like we were connecting with this person that we didn't even know, or I didn't know.
Yes.
It felt really beautiful.
And that person wasn't there with you.
No, she wasn't.
So it was, yeah, that's a connection within a connection, because you're connecting with the tree and at the same time with this person through her mentioning of this tree. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Let's hear from someone else. A particular tree? Tell us, did something come up for you?
Me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yes, there is a pair, there's one live oak tree, enormous live oak tree on the University of Texas campus where I attended college. And
In Austin, Texas?
In Austin, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the first place that I felt comfortable my freshman year, because I saw a musician that I had seen before coming to school, and he was playing there. And then it was just a place that I worked at a building that was right next door. It's right by the Union. Like, it just was a place that I constantly went back to. And it's a huge tree that just spans 40 feet or something. It's a huge canopy, and it just is live oak trees in general are really fascinating to me. And
I have been on that campus.
oh yeah.
And it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
The trees are extraordinary.
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
It's surprising for Texas. but
Yes,
yeah.
it is breathtakingly beautiful.
They
yes.
are,
yes.
Yes, they have personality.
Yes, I collected a lot of leaves and acorns. I mean, I was running to the trees when I was there. I was just thinking, can we turn around to face each other? So maybe if we move this chair here and your chair that way, we will if somebody else comes, they can join us on this side. Yeah, that's wonderful. I love that. What about you? Did you think up of a tree? Yeah, what was your tree?
So many trees.
Uh-huh.
But the first one that came to mind was the tree that was outside my bedroom window growing up. My parents had this really big aspen tree, and I used to climb it when I was younger, and then, just hearing the leaves in the wind in the evening with the wind blowing. I feel like it was the tree that I grew up around the most, and I just really remember like the smell of it and the sap on the leaves and how it changed color, and then eventually we had to cut it down because it had a split trunk and one of the halves fell down, and we tried to save it by cutting off one of the main branches. But then eventually we had to take the whole thing down because it was just like leaning out. And it was I don't know, kind of like a family care of this tree because it would send up all these like little shoots in the yard.
Yes,
Because they spread so easily, and so my dad hated the tree, my siblings and I loved the tree. So it was, I don't know, kind of like a pet or a sibling.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So I teach this class on trees through Hero House, and the first thing I asked on the first day of class is for everybody to adopt a tree, like you would a pet, you know? Although they're not pets, but the idea is, you know, get yourself attached to a tree. Okay, so we have an aspen. We have, did I miss, Gabriella, which kind of tree it was that you said?
I don't know what kind of tree it was.
So
Yeah,
a
I'm not
gnarled
sure.
old
Gnarly
tree.
old tree. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we had oaks,
Live oak.
live oak, yeah. Okay. What about for you?
Well, the first tree I could think of was one very close to home. It's just in my yard. It's an ash tree, and we've been in our house for a long time, so I've watched it grow. And it's just a very nourishing, sheltering tree. In the summer, it's got a lot of leaves and it's very shady. And I put my hammock underneath it.
Oh, nice.
It's my
Nice.
favorite reading place.
Yes,
Yeah.
that sounds lovely. All these big, the images that we keep on getting, right, from your all descriptions. Thank you. What about you? What tree came to mind?
I didn't realize how many like core memories of mine are tied to trees. Like I thought of so many different trees like all
Yes.
throughout growing up.
Yeah.
I think yeah, like a lot of childhood memories are around trees or in trees or under trees.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the one that like first came to mind was in my college house. My room was like right on the corner, and I had a sliding door in my room and like a little deck, and right out to the side there was like a little, not like a little ledge, like a tree growing, like a really tall, it's whatever ones have, is it cottonwood?
Yeah, there's cottonwoods.
yeah,
Yeah. What school was that?
The Western
Oh, up in,
Washington. Yeah.
up in here in Washington
Yeah,
State?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was just this giant tree, but it just constantly looked like it was about to fall over. And like we talked to our landlord about it a lot, and they were always trying, but it was the neighbor's property, and the neighbor didn't want it removed. But it was like kind of, the roots were coming out of the side. It looked very precarious, but it was also very beautiful. I would go out at night and look at the stars, and I would see the outline of the trees, of the tree and the branches.
How
Or
wonderful
just
it
like
is.
sitting outside and listening to it rustling and right outside my room. But I was also just in constant fear whenever there was like a windstorm, which happened a lot in Bellingham, that
Yes,
it was
it
gonna
does.
like, so it was
Yes.
like this beautiful thing that I was also just constantly afraid of.
Yes. You know what you just said, what you all have shared are these images, right? The image of the stars through the trees, or the hammock and this under, you know, this full summer tree. And as you're speaking, of course, I'm visualizing that, and that's what poetry is, right? Poetry works through really clear images, and that's what you have done, all of you. Like the tree that's splitting in half like this, like I could see that. It's very clear. It's the tree. There's emotion there. So as you were speaking right now, I thought, there goes the poem already manifesting itself. And we were just talking. Okay, so I love the observation that, and I think this came across, how many ways, when you stop and think about it, how much of our life is tethered or manifested through trees when we stop and think about it. Like they are really part of our most intimate moments in a way, right? So these are prehistoric trees because they've been around for a really long time, and it's just a little blurb, but I like to think of the time when there were no trees, and then they showed up, right? They appeared 400 million years ago with early forms of trees lacking leaves and using complex internal woody strands to grow. They were vital for oxygenating the atmosphere and paving the way for terrestrial life. And of course the ginkgo, that's the tree that I'm always amazed of, because it's called sometimes an evolutionary mutant because it stopped changing millions of years ago. The ginkgo has been the same way for millions of years. So when we look at a beautiful fall ginkgo as the leaves turn gold, I mean, that is a tree that has so much knowledge of the experience of the earth, because it's one of the oldest, or probably the oldest living thing. It is the oldest living thing that we have on the planet, a ginkgo tree. And I always think, what a grandfather or grandmother, like all of that, it's been itself as is 400 million years. That's incredible. Let's see how many kinds of trees we can name. Because we have aspen, we talked about maybe an oak, I don't know, it could have been an apple tree, the gnarled tree that you saw, live oaks, ash, cottonwood, what else?
Hickory.
A hickory, okay. Just shout out the names.
Beach.
Oh, a beech. They get huge. Okay, so a beech, hickory,
Palo verde. Sorry. Fir.
a fir, okay.
Palo verde.
Palo verde, okay. Those are, where do they grow?
Arizona at the very least, but probably elsewhere too.
Yeah, but it's more the southwest, right? Yeah. And the
Eucalyptus.
eucalyptus, yeah, which is a native of Australia. Yeah. Have you been there to Australia? So eucalyptus are a pest in California, right? In Northern California. They were brought in because they grow very quickly and they needed timber for railroad as the railroads were expanding, and they needed the dormers or the rails, I guess. And they thought that growing these trees, which grow really fast, would be great because then they could be harvested. But eucalyptus make terrible wood. It's warped, it's not as strong, and so they planted a lot of them and then quickly realized that it was useless wood for that purpose, and they were left there. And so Northern California, the hills of the Bay Area are full of eucalyptus trees that are now being contained because they're an invasive species, because they were brought and never really used. And I mean, they're beautiful, but they were taken out of their habitat and suddenly, they went wild. Yeah. That's just a little side story. Okay, eucalyptus, what else?
Redwood.
Redwood, another California tree. Yeah.
Cedar.
Cedar, yes. The western red, yeah. Which there must be a lot in Bellingham, I imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's bring in a few more.
Shore pine.
Shore pine. What about just more, to call them something, domestic trees?
Birch.
A birch, okay.
Maple.
A maple, yeah. What about a cherry? Right? Fruiting trees like a cherry or an apple or, I don't know, pluots, mangoes, avocados, those tamarind, they're all cinnamon, all the citrus, yeah. Yes. Even lilacs could get kind of big and tree-like, right? I'm just trying to check ourselves against what we know of our arboreal neighbors. Like, if you visualize where you live right now, and you could see the closest tree to your place where you live, can you name what tree that is? For you? Yeah?
We haven't figured out what type of willow it is, but it's a willow.
Like a weeping willow?
It's not weeping, it looks more like native.
Okay, some kind of willow with a
Heavier.
thin
Yeah.
leaves. Yeah, okay. Can anybody else name? what tree they have?
We have a plum blossom tree, but there's one closer, and it has these big red flowers. I can't remember what it's called.
Camellia.
Yeah, maybe it is camellia.
Right now they're blooming?
They're still blooming a little bit. Like a couple weeks ago, they were biggest blooms, but.
Yeah, maybe it's a camellia. They bloom in February, January. Yeah. It's just like an awareness. It's just a question. So here are some of the uses of trees, right? I mean, we use them in textiles, cotton, of course, timber. Inside this building, there's wood that's sustaining us, which is trees, bodies that are allowing for the structures to go up. Of course, all the food they give us, all kinds of tools, bats, cricket bats, all kinds of instruments, pianos, guitars, cellos, dolls, I mean, you name it. There's so many maracas, timbales, congas. I mean, what kind of music instrument? There's very few, right, except maybe for like the trombone or more metal instruments that have wood, that are derived from wood. And of course, air and water itself, that is an early mountain scene where when you see the water evaporating from the trees, going and becoming clouds, which would then come down as rain. So this constant cycle of the role that trees play in water making. So they impact every aspect of our lives. I mean, this is just a few. I don't even know if you could think of some other ways in which trees show up in our lives. Even the paper you have in your hands, and the pencils, and your jeans, and the t-shirt that you're wearing, and the tote bags that we carry around. I mean, it's just really endless. Even things like the feathers in your parka, in your sweater, came most likely from a duck or a geese or a goose, right? But that animal ate plant material in order to thrive. And so there's all these derivatives that when you start thinking about it, leads us back to plants and trees. So that's what this observation is. So this is a poem by D.H. Lawrence, Trees in the Garden. And I always love to read poems twice, because everybody brings the breath in a poem is kind of the guiding force in the poem, right? I mean, I always think, what is the breath in that poem? How was that poem, how does it come onto the page? And so I follow the breath, and your breath and your cadence is different than yours, so I always like to hear it in different voices. So can I get somebody to read this one? Yeah.
Trees in the Garden by D.H. Lawrence. Ah, in the thunder air, how still the trees are. In the lime tree, lovely and tall, every leaf silent, hardly loses even a last breath of perfume. In the ghostly, creamy-colored little tree of leaves, white, ivory white among the rambling greens, how evanescent, variegated elder, she hesitates on the green grass, as if in another moment she would disappear with all her grace of foam. And the larch that is only a column, it goes up too tall to see. And the balsam pines that are blue with the gray blueness of things from the sea. And the young copper beech, its leaves red rosy at the ends, how still they are together. They stand so still in the thunder air, all strangers to one another, as in the green grass glows upwards, strangers in the silent garden.
Thank you. So I'll give you a moment to read it over yourselves at your own pacing, and then we'll voice it one more time.
hardly loses even a last breath of perfume. And the ghostly, creamy-colored little tree of leaves, white, ivory white among the rambling greens. How evanescent, variegated elder, she hesitates on the green grass, as if in another moment she would disappear, with all of her grace of foam. And the larch that is only a column, it goes up too tall to see. And the balsam pines that are blue with the gray blue blueness of things from the sea, and the young copper beech, its leaves red rosy at the ends. How still they are together, they stand so still. In the thunder air, all strangers to one another, as the green grass glows upwards, strangers in the silent garden.
Wonderful, thank you. It's a gentle poem. Both of you read it so gently. What did you notice besides from the gentleness? What stirred for you as you read, as we heard, and you read yourself?
I really liked in the larch that is only a column and all strangers to one another.
Mm-hmm. In the larch that is only a column, it goes up too tall to see. And in the thunder air, all strangers to one another. Any other lines or images?
I'm just was thinking about the moment before a storm and how much power there is on the other end of that, but then how peaceful and calm it is right before the thunder. Also the fact that all of the trees could get hit by lightning.
Yes, they're vulnerable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are some very, so the whole poem has this distinct images. The larch that is only a column, you see it like this, you know. And the colors, the balsam pines that are blue with the gray blueness of things from the sea. I love that line. And the young copper beech, its leaves red rosy at the ends. How still they are together. They stand so still in the thunder air, all strangers to one another, as the green grass blows upwards, strangers in the silent garden. So these are trees in the landscape, right? These are trees out there. The speaker is over here. I'm viewing the trees over there. They're arranged in the landscape. They're on their own. They're strange to one another. There isn't, I'm sort of repeating what the poem says. There isn't any interaction between the trees in this poem. They are over there. I'm over here watching, and I'm writing and noting, but the trees are silent. They don't have any interaction with each other. They're very lonely in a way. They're their own things in this poem, right? They're objects that I am observing and describing. But the trees really have no agency of their own in this poem. They're just there. They're there as how evanescent, variegated elder. There's a lot of description here of the quality of the trees. They're tall, they're variegated, they have these beautiful colors, but they're objects in the landscape. I just want us to note how the tree here is, how the writer is in relation with the trees, right? What happens when you are among the trees? Or when you encounter a tree? What happens to you each when you go to a park or actually at Western, which has that magnificent walking way right next to it? It's really beautiful. I love that. What is it? Arboretum, right? Yeah. But it's like a forest. Yeah. What happens to you? You're welcome to jot things down. If a phrase comes up when in answering this question, jot it down in your notebook. Has a tree ever shared anything with you? Has it ever spoken in a way that you only could hear it? And the trees don't speak, of course, but have you heard some kind of communication, a kind of more spiritual perhaps, or more psychic communication? And what did it say to you? And when you get close to a tree trunk, what colors show up? When you actually look at it closely, like all of you have experience observing trees. Like I'm sure when you were in Austin, you got really close to trees and you were examining them. If you could put yourself back there, what colors did you see? Or you were speaking of the scent of the trees as well. Like, what was that scent? Was it clean? Was it rosy? Flowery? So jot some notes in response to these questions. Let's take like a minute to do that. All right, let's jot one more thought and then I'll move on to the next. I'll share an anecdote because at Gabriella you talked about being in England with trees. I was in Ireland a couple of summers ago I have 3 children, so we were there, the whole family. We rented a farmhouse near Blue, I think it was. That's County Kerry, I think. And it was a farmhouse with an old wheel for bread making or a windmill, but it ran with water that was abandoned. There was a river there that ran through the property, small rivulet, and it was just an old farmhouse, and we're staying there. And before that, we had spent time in Dublin, and the Celts, oaks were sacred trees and oracles. And so on this property, there were a cluster of oaks close to where the water was, and I thought, I am going to go and ask the oracle, like a question. So I walked over to one of the trees, which was covered in ivy. The whole trunk was just like taken over. But I walked over and I, got myself in a quiet place and put my hand on the trunk of this tree and summoned a question. And immediately, the response, I heard it, it came back. Because I asked the question and then a response came back that said, go be your own tree, is the response. I was asking something, I can't even remember the question, but I remember the response was like, go be your own tree. And I was really startled because I expected I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't like an admonition, like, why don't you go be your own tree, be your own self, figure it out. It's kind of the feeling of that. And I was so startled by the response, because I would not have told myself that. It wasn't like I was telling myself that, you know what I mean? It came from the tree. And I think that was, well, I grew up in a house with many trees in El Salvador, very lush, big old yard with a lot of trees, and all my games were outside with trees, making things from tree leaves and fruits and you know, like mango seeds for us. We used to put them in water and wash them of all the sweetness, and then they're white and they float like mermaids, and we used to comb them. I mean, all kinds of games with seeds and pods, and it was just marvelous. So I've spent a lot of time among the trees, but that was the first time in Ireland where I actually got such a visceral response from a tree. So that is that question, you know, what have they spoken? Have they ever spoken to you? People have. I've in my class I had once a woman, because I asked people to adopt a tree, and the idea is to make it a tree that's accessible, that you can visit every day. And it's a way of observing and tuning in our observation, right? Because that's what we do when we make art. We have to really look at the details and learn to observe. And so it's practice in observing. And I asked them if they had given names to the trees that they had adopted, like in another class. And somebody said, well, I had an experience. I asked the tree what their name was, and the tree said, Alma. And I've never heard that before. This was here at Hugo House. And I was shocked that this woman was saying, this is what the tree told me their name was, Alma. And I said to her, do you know that is the word for soul in Spanish? Is Alma? And she was shocked. I was a little freaked out when she said that, but yes, that is the word for soul in Spanish is Alma, and that's what the tree had told this woman their name was. She was not a Spanish speaker at all. She had no clue what this word meant, you know. So that's what I'm getting at. I want you to dig in and think back. Did that ever happen to you when you were a kid, or has that ever happened to you? So this is another poem by Mary Oliver this time, and When I Am Among the Trees. And this time I'll read it first, and then I can have another person read it. Has anybody read this poem before, or encountered this poem before? No? Okay. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me the trees stir in their leaves and call out, stay a while. The light flows from their branches, and they call again. It's simple, they say, and you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine. So take a moment to read it, and then we'll get somebody else's breath. All right, can I get a volunteer? Yes, please.
When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me the trees stir in their leaves and call out, stay a while. The too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine.
Thank you. All right, so what's happening in this poem for you when you're reading it? Or what phrase stands out, or image, or word?
The hints of gladness.
What about it?
It's quiet. I mean, it's just the beginning, like what she's starting to get from them. I mean, and also like hints is subtle, and gladness is less subtle, but that.
So you like the combination of words, you like, yeah.
Yeah, but just the idea of like the trees emitting gladness.
Okay.
Is so pleasurable and honoring what they're.
Yes.
Honoring them, as you said, that like in the D.H. Lawrence poem, the trees were objects, and she's already recognizing them as elders.
Yes.
Mentors.
So the trees are emitting gladness. I love that. They're emitting gladness in this poem. They're giving off something, right? Yeah. They're active.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anything else?
It's the idea that they call out to her and like stop her in the middle of her like busyness or lack of discernment, like catch her off guard and bring her back to like the simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
Is, I don't know, like very opposite stance again from the last poem where it's just an observation, like having something that's stationary and some people would just like look past, like bringing you out of your world and checking you in.
Mm-hmm.
It's again, yeah, like more of a mentor figure.
Yes. So the positionality of the trees has changed here, totally from objects and out there. I'm here, you're out there. I could describe you. You're all alone. You're not talking to each other. Here, the trees are emitting both sound and a feeling, an invitation, this gladness. Like, it's such a lovely thing, right? What else do you notice in this poem? So yes, absolutely very different here. The treatment of the tree, the position, the trees here are our subjects, right? They have some kind of volition. They're talking to her. They're calling out to her. And she's reacting to them. So it's not only that I'm observing how beautiful they are, these trees are doing something to my emotional state. So she's reacting. And she's noticed the light flows from their branches and they call again. They're telling me to do something. Don't hurry through the world. They invite me to slow down, and I listen to them. She's listening to their suggestions and to their emittings, right? Yeah. What else? Anything else stands out?
The line that says, "And you two have come into the world to do this, to go easy." That was one of the things that I wrote for How Do I Feel Around Trees, is like ease.
Yes.
And that sense of like you can like exhale a relief. That
Yes.
you feel in nature.
Mm-hmm.
Just like surrounded by like peace and trees.
Yeah, they're very non-judgmental. They're completely non-judgmental. They're not going to tell us anything about negative nor positive, and in that we are free to be ourselves. We're not being, I don't like your dress, or what about those shoes, or wow, your hair is different today, or whatever. There's none of that. And so there's an aperture that happens. I want you to notice, when we started, I talked about the little phrases and images that you yourselves were sharing in your talking. If I say tree, when I say the word tree, what tree comes into mind for you?
A fir.
A fir? What about for you?
Well, like the word apple, but I picture a pine.
Okay. I like that. What about you, Gabriella?
A mesquite tree.
A mesquite, okay.
Usually a maple.
A maple.
I
Yeah, but see,
They're
but
just spinning all the
yes,
different trees.
and that is so. In poetry, we want to be specific. We want to call out the thing itself, because if she had just left it at trees, we would not have the cues that she's giving us about which trees. But because she's naming the willow and the honey locust, the beech, the oaks, and the pines, we could see each of those trees distinctly. And it's interesting in this poem, I love how she says, when I am among the trees, right, and we could see that kind of green landscape, and we've seen it in the in my slides, when I am among the trees, right? Could be those trees. Do I have other trees? Could be those trees, right? But then she gets specific. She names them, because that makes us see the specific, makes us, the reader, see, visualize. And then she does something else. She's so enthralled. She says, especially the willows and the honey locust. Wait, equally the beech. And oh my God, the oaks. I love the oaks. And the pines too. So she kind of gets carried away at the beginning of this poem, both naming the specific trees and then just loving them so much she keeps on like, and this, and that, and that. And I just really love kind of that crescendo that happens at the beginning with the naming. And then she goes into the gives off such hits of gladness, but by then we have seen specific trees in our mind's eye. And when we write poems, we want to be specific. We want to see the things. If I asked you, what do you see in your mind's eye when I say fruit? If I say fruit, I bet you could take me out for a coffee, that all of you will see a different fruit. Maybe you'll see a mango, and you'll see an apple, and you'll see cherries, and maybe you'll see blueberries, and maybe there's two of you who would see the same fruit, but if I say mango, you see mango. If I say plum, you see plum. So we want that. That's an image. I could see it. I could smell it. I relate to it, right? So we don't want vagueness. And she does this beautifully in this poem by naming the poems. And we see how the poems here have switched their subjects. They have subjectivity. They have some kind of agency. They're talking. She's responding. She's with them and among them, no longer separate from them, but she's engaging with them. Here's some more trees. When I'm among the trees, more tropical trees. And this is a poem by Irma Pineda, this is translated by Wendy Call. Irma Pineda writes, in a native language, might be Zapotec, or I may be wrong. She's from Mexico. She's an indigenous poet and writes in her original language and translates her own work to Spanish, and Wendy Call here is translating from the Spanish. So it happens sometimes by Irma Pineda. Can I get another volunteer to read this poem? Somebody who hasn't read? Yeah.
It happens sometimes that you fall in love with trees for the shade they create, the strength of their branches, or the sweetness of their fruits. It also happens sometimes that the tree you love turns into a man, and you love his ideas, his lips, his heart, his arms, or his sex, because trees have sex. And later it sometimes happens that the tree you love is close enough to astonish, frighten, ceasing to be a tree and appearing as a sun that dazzles your besotted eyes. And then it happens, sometimes, that you don't know whether to close your eyes and hide, or regard the sun-man tree until going blind.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Can we have one more reading of this poem?
Have you read yet?
I understand.
Oh, that was you. Sorry, I was looking at it. I can read it. It sometimes happens that you fall in love with trees for the shade they create, the strength of their branches, or the sweetness of their fruits. It also happens sometimes tree you love turns into a man. And you love his ideas, his lips, his heart, his arms, or his sex, because trees have sex. And later, it sometimes happens that the tree you love is close enough to astonish, frighten, ceasing to be a tree and appearing as a sun that dazzles your besotted eyes. And then it happens, sometimes, that you don't know whether to close your eyes and hide or regard the sun-man tree until going blind.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for those readings. All right, what about this poem from Irma Pineda?
After we just talked about the specificity of naming trees, here she doesn't do that.
She doesn't do that. Yes, I think this poem is going south. I mean, I'm pointing out to you, for a poem to work well, it needs to have clear images. Images are, and an image is not just the thing. We want to name the thing because we want to see it, but also an image can convey a feeling, right? A bright daffodil will make it's a bright image of sunshine and felicity, as opposed to having, a dying rose on a drooping petals, right? Or a peony that has drooped its head. That image would convey something else. We could attach feelings and emotions to images. So images are not only working visually, but also on an emotional level. A good image is doing a lot of that. This poem is going to, so I wanted to point that out with the specificity because we're writing about trees, like name the thing itself, right? That's William Carlos Williams's dictum. No ideas, but in things. We want to see the things. Here, she's going for something else in this poem. So I am glad you made that notice. You noted that. I think there's a lot of play with language here. And later, it sometimes happens. And this repetition that she has going. And later, it sometimes happens. And then it happens sometimes. Right? And at the beginning here, it sometimes happens, it also happens sometimes, and later it sometimes happens. So this poem is turning in with the language of it. That's part of what's driving this particular poem. But with respect to trees, what is happening here? What happened to the trees in this poem?
Turn into different things.
The poem is that, and the trees are not only just trees, they are these beings that have potency and maybe some magic, right? They are no longer just these things over there like inert, almost in the first poem. They're alive, but it's almost inert. They have no volition. There's just these shapes in the landscape. Here, the trees can have this other energy inside of them that could become a man or could become a woman. They have sex. You could have this kind of romantic engagement with the tree. And not only that, they dazzle you. They dazzle you like a sun. It's a total different relationship with nature that is being depicted here. From the beginning, as a use, as an object over there, to having a complete different relationship with these trees, where the power relationship has also changed. Because these trees are magic. They will dazzle you. They're turning into suns. I mean, they're a lot stronger than you are. They're incredible beings. Complete in the progression of these poems, we're seeing also a shift in the thinking of how we approach trees, right? The first poem, I was struck, here, let's go back to the first poem. And the large, where is it? How still they are together. They stand so still in the thunder air, all strangers to one another. I was sharing this talk in Bellingham, of all places, and somebody said, what about Suzanne Simard? Do you guys know about Suzanne Simard? Tell us about Suzanne Simard.
The trees are communicating with each other in natural relationship.
Yes, they have mycelium on their roots, so they're actually communicating with each other through the roots and the fungi who live and carry nutrients and information back and forth between them. They ate each other. So that person was like, that's not good. This poem is missing information, right? And it's thinking. What I'm after here is what thinking is into these poems. What kind of understanding of the relationship of ourselves to trees is emerging. In addition to the beautiful poetry, because it is a beautiful poem, what is the thinking or the position of the writer with respect to trees in particular in this case, right? And for this viewpoint is very different than Mary Oliver's viewpoint, and this poem written by an indigenous woman from Mexico has a totally different relationship with the trees. That's because I think that when you look at literature and how trees have been represented, you could trace a change in our attitudes toward beings that are non-human, right? From treating things like extractive, these trees are good for timber, trees are good without any consideration as to the fact that they may have some kind of agency that we are not aware of because they are different species than us. I mean, I just read recently that some researchers are now interested in and have proven that trees sleep, that there is also patterns of sleep in trees. And that's amazing. I was in Whidbey Island because I'm at Hedgebrook a lot, and I thought, wow, I never thought that I've always wondered because at night, right, they're still moving in the wind, but they also, now they believe that there's a moment in the day where they also tune themselves off and sleep. Isn't that incredible? Yeah. So, here trees talk about sleep, night, the nightlife of trees. You know, it's even, I was just thinking, do you know that book by the German Werleben, I think it was called? I mean, help me here.
Was it The Secret Life of Trees?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Have you read it?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, and he had a story. I mean, I read it a long time ago, but I remember being struck because he worked in a botanical garden, right, in a German botanical garden, and there was a tree, and this is true because last summer I was in Paris, and my objective being there was following trees, so trees that came over, people brought over to Paris, like specimens from the Americas, you know, and they're planted all over Paris. There's maps of trees that you could go visit, and like there's trees native to Brazil or whatever, old, hundreds of years that have been planted there, because they were like these new things that people wanted to see, right? And so he talks about this tree, I don't remember what it is, but it looked really different than what the tree looked in the wild. Like totally, like in the wild or in their native habitats, those trees did not look like the tree in this German garden. And he realized the trees teach each other how to grow when they're in proximity to each other, like what branches to drop, which they do, they drop branches, you know, because they're seeking light, and sometimes the branch is growing off, and notice any tree, there's often like trees that have dropped the branches that are not helping them, but apparently trees communicate to each other, like drop that one or drop this one, and the growth pattern was very different, and this one tree didn't have another tree to share information with and grew in this abnormal, like really odd way. I remember reading that passage in that book and just being really struck by that. So yes, they have ways of communicating. We know that, not through talking, but chemical interactions and whatnot. And that shows more in we know that scientifically now, right? Okay, any other thoughts about this poem that you may like or question? You know, there's a lot of Northern European stories linden trees were really in Scandinavia, were really, there's a lot of stories of the trees having spirits and people really relating very carefully with them or wanting these trees near where they lived as protection and so on. So there's a lot of, I think before maybe the Industrial Revolution, people had very different relationships and engagements with trees in Europe as well. Okay, so let's do some writing. Let me see what my next slide is. Okay. So I want you to write a poem. So we've been talking about trees. You took down some notes, and I want you to write a poem or, a passage about a tree that is significant in your life. And to do that, I want you to really come into, contact with this tree, right? So be an empathetic relationship. Put yourself next to the tree physically. Really try to go there, to that space where you've shared your life with that tree that you're writing. What is it that you smell, touch, or hear when you're there? When you're writing, I want you to write 3 different comparisons because metaphors and similes in addition to image is, a professor at Seattle used to say, if there's no metaphor, there's no poem. That's kind of radical. I kind of disagree with that, but I see her point. And that is that when you make a comparison, like when you use a simile, you are saying this thing approximates this other thing that may not be of the same. I may be comparing a tree to a train, let's say. And in that little exercise of comparing those 2 things, you widen the scope of the poem. Because now you have, the comparison does something like this to what the poem is saying, right? And a metaphor even expands that more, because a metaphor is no longer that this thing is like that, kind of close to that. A metaphor says this thing, the structures underneath these 2 things, if I put them on top of each other, are the same. Metaphors are harder to come up with in writing, but similes add so much dimension to poems. So I want you to write 3 similes with respect to this tree. This leaf or this tree is like, I don't know, my grandfather when he opened up his arms and welcomed me as a 5-year-old, or whatever it is the comparison you want to make. So I want you to take your tree and come up with 3 similes. And once you have this empathetic moment with this tree and you have these comparisons, I want you to begin writing. And to write, I'm inviting you to use these prompts. They're not prompts, I call them stems. You could start with, I remember the tree outside my window when I was growing up. I remember the cherry tree outside my window growing up in the 6th grade. And you could just take it from there. You could have a stem that begins with come with me. Come with me to Mason and 6th, the corner, the street where I grew up or where my school was. Or come with me to the willow outside my door. Or, there's many ways you could go with come with me, but what you're doing is essentially inviting a reader to come with me. Come with me to the garden where I walk every afternoon. Or you could take the stem from Mary Oliver's, when I'm among the trees, or when I'm in my garden, or when I'm in a forest, or you could use her stem. And the beauty of all of these beginnings is that when you're done, you could take that off. This is a way to get you to get into the poem, but at the end, you could just drop that. And you could leave it, but you could also take it away, because it's just a way of getting into the poem. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me go back to this, and let me put a timer. Let's do 10 minutes and see where we get. So let's talk about where that took us. Was that hard? Was it easy? Was it interesting? Where did you go? Gabriella, where did you go?
I was thinking about a tree that was in the playground that I grew up going to at my school. And it was a mesquite tree, but it kind of looked like a willow. Because the arms it was like so overgrown.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of nice to like think back to it and then also like dissect all the little parts of the tree that I hadn't thought about, and really go through all the different, limbs and leaves and roots, and so that was kind of cool.
I love that. I love that. Where did you go? Where did that take you?
I thought of a tree outside my grandparents' house that I used to climb when I was younger. And I kind of wrote about remembering being so young that I wasn't able to climb the tree, and just like looking at it, admiring it, and practicing climbing it, and then like the experience of like one day realizing like, oh, I'm tall enough to climb this tree, and how does it feel, and how does it feel to be part of the tree and in the tree, and moving my way up.
I think we as kids always want to be in the tree.
Yeah.
Isn't that like something we wished for? Like, how can I get up there? Yeah, I remember wishing to be in a tree as a kid. Yeah, I think probably all humans have that feeling at some point, actually. What about you?
Yeah, I thought about the tree that I brought up in the beginning, the aspen, in front of my parents' house. And yeah, just the way it felt to climb it, definitely. But also just where it was placed, like in relation to the town, and how it was up on the hill, and the different memories that I have associated with it.
It sounds like it was a beacon.
It felt
some
like
kind of a beacon, like a lighthouse, right at the top of the street. Yeah, I really loved what you said at the beginning, how this became a family project. The maintenance of the tree, even because it gave off those shoots that trees do, and how you have to be on them. And yeah, I love that idea of the tree being somehow engaging the whole family. Yeah, that's great. What about the two of you? Where did you go?
I'm still good.
You're still going.
I also stuck with the trees that I mentioned at the beginning, and I just managed to start the poem as we were ending, because I did a lot of preparatory work.
That's wonderful.
Listing things,
Yes,
so,
yes.
but yeah, it was very like specific and sensory.
And there are, poems are different kinds, right? There can be a poem that is just a sensory wonder. And the D.H. Lawrence poem is very much that. Those descriptions are really beautiful. There's a lot of sound in the poem with the alliteration of the blue grass or the blue ocean. I love that line. So that poem is working from that end. And actually, to tell you the truth, in my journey thinking and writing about trees, I came across that poem and I loved it. And I love the clean images and just the tension before, as you talked about before, a storm. And it wasn't until I started really reading a lot and collecting poems about trees that I began to think more in a different way about them, which is, how do we represent something, right? How does it show up? How do we talk about these things? It's like women's bodies. I'm always struck by how women's bodies are represented. Sometimes you don't even see the person. You see a shoe, or you see a hand, or it's not the whole thing. It's always just a little chunk of us, and I'm always for, like, why can't we have a full representation of the person? Once you start noticing, a lot of times we don't see the whole individual. We see only a little part, like a disembodied part. right? In the case of the trees there as well at the beginning. So I started to think about the thinking underneath the writing of these poems. And that's what this talk is, like exploring that through literature, how trees are represented and how that has changed over time. And then what our individual relationship is with trees. So you wrote a lot before, and then where did you go? So it was very, you said sensory. You wrote a sensory.
I made a squares for see, hear, touch, smell.
Yeah.
I just wrote things in the squares.
Yeah.
And then I used the come with me
Yes.
stem
Yes.
and just started to write about like approaching.
That's wonderful. That's great. Yeah. I love that. What about you?
I also used Come With Me, and I found that to be so much, like, so much more generative than I remember, because it's like you're bringing someone along, so
Yes.
there's someone there to talk to, and
Yes.
it felt so much easier to
Yeah.
read. So,
Yeah.
I wrote about, I started out writing about some of the other live oak trees around the corner from the larger one, which is actually one of two trees that when I started thinking about these trees are like probably 20 feet, trunks are 20 feet apart, they're built around these giant, this isn't even what I wrote, but there's all these ideas coming, but I wrote about this moment of looking up through the tree branches and like coming to an understanding of this artist that I was studying and trying to write a thesis about in college, and it was like the only like truly like my thought about it, and it didn't make its way into the thesis, which was not very good, but it was like it was like the first going to the concert, and like it was like a place where I found myself on campus and like connected to who I was, even though I didn't really know that person then.
Mm-hmm.
And that so there just things just kept coming. It was really
Oh, I'm so glad.
really generative.
Yes, I want it to be generative. That's one of my favorite prompts. Come with me. I use that a lot myself because it's an immediate invitation. And depending on what follows that, it could be come with me to the time when. It could be a noun. Come with me to my grandmother's teacup. And you could begin there, you know. It could be a verb. Come with me running through the forest, you know, after skinny dipping with friends in college or something at the local lake or whatever. But you could modulate that depending on what follows. So is it an action? Is it an item like my grandmother's teacup? So is it a noun that's laden with some kind of meaning? Or is it a story that you're beginning? Come with me to the time, you know, or come with me at 5 years old. There's so many ways you could go with that, and what you're doing really is an invitation to the reader. So already you're bringing somebody along, which is the beauty of the prompt. Yeah. Okay. Does anybody want to read what they wrote? Was it hard? Let me just ask that question. Was it hard or did it flow pretty easily? Did you just go right in it, or was it a little hard?
I mean, mine flowed, which I really have a hard time with prompts.
Yes.
So it was exciting to have things just happen,
Great.
as opposed to freezing and not knowing
Yes.
how to
Yes.
do it.
Good. Well, it's 8:31, so we are at time. Would anybody like to share what they wrote before we move on to the closure?
Can I share
Yes.
not my poem, but I had a 12-year-old student of mine today, and I kind of want to share. I feel like this is like a really nice place to share
Yes.
a poem.
Yes.
She told me I could share it with others.
Yes.
It's about trees, and I don't know, we were talking about it, and I was like, oh, this would be a really great place to like share
Yes,
it.
please share it. Yes.
It was just really beautiful. I don't know.
So this student is 12.
The student is 12.
Okay.
And she wrote it's going to be published. She was working with writers in the schools.
Mm-hmm.
And she wrote a really beautiful poem about trees, and so I don't know.
I'm
This is a
so
good time
happy
to
that you
share
brought
if
it.
you wanna hear
Yes,
it.
absolutely. I love to
It's
hear it.
very beautiful, and
Yes.
I feel like it's very on topic. She wrote, "Were trees?" It's called "Questions of a Seed." And she wrote, "Were trees always strong? Did we build ourselves up? Could a seed be told it was an apple but grow to be a pear? What do I need to do to grow out of a seed? Can I stand tall like a building and strong like a mountain? Can I be strong enough to lose my leaves and stand up to the winds who push me down? Can I bear the heat, the burning flame in my lungs, which is the wildfire that will find all of us eventually?"
Wow, what an ending. That's amazing. That's wonderful. Yes, what an image there at the end, the wildfire that will find us all eventually. It will consume us in a kind of a wild way. Like we think of death as a kind of a quiet passing, but this is like, being consumed, going up in flames. Like, I love that. I love that. That's great. Yeah. Well, thank your student for that.
Yeah, thank you for listening to it.
Yeah.
It seemed very on topic.
Yes, it did. It did. When I teach the class, I use the armature of the tree to move through the different classes. So we start with the trunk, and then we talk about branches, and then we have a class on leaves, and a class on roots, and on fruits and flowers, and each part of the anatomy of a tree is an opportunity to generate work. So I have a class on seeds, which it reminded me that she was asking there. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Trees, by the way, also show up in our intellectual, just like humanistic development. Like when you think of a tree, right? In statistics, you think of a tree. It is a design to explain, or like even coding or something like computer languages has the branching out of a tree, or you see the tree of life. So as motifs and symbols, they appear all throughout history and philosophy as organizing principles. Yeah, they're incredible. They're everywhere. So these are the suggestions. I remember is also a great prompt to write off of. It's very easy and very simple and prosaic, but it yields fantastic results. Because it makes you go somewhere, and then you are lost in that space that gets open, and you forget about how is it that I got here. That's not the point. So I remember. So I close this. Does anybody know The Apple Trees at Olina? The poem by Robert Hass? This is why I have this here, because this tree reminds me of that poem. But I want to finish with this poem by Robert Brinkhurst, who is a Canadian philosopher and poet. And this is titled The Occupation. I will tell you how it was the world changed, she said, and darkness wrapped us round. I heard her clearly, though I barely heard the words. It was nearly, yes, as if she were singing. Our job, she was saying, is not to change the world, not even to keep it from changing. No, she was saying, the story was over already. Our only job is being changed. And this is part of a longer poem. The Occupation is a long poem about climate change. And I believe this too. I believe that our only job is being changed in the way in which we bring ourselves and move through the world that sustains us, right? And what do we do to protect these beings that have been here long before we ever showed up on this planet and have made the planet possible? And now the image of the burning tree, right? It's a real image. It happens every summer. We have more and more forest fires that are because of the changing climate and all of the disastrous effects of industrialized capitalism and our consumption. And so our only job is being changed. And I think that is meaning, for me, change from our heart and our relationship and how we see beings, non-human beings with whom we share the earth. So I really love this poem. small section of this poem. Yeah. Any thoughts about the poem or what I said or about what you're taking away?
Probably too many things to say.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, often actually about how there's so much, it's so easy to feel despair and to feel this like doom. But if we can't connect to nature and like go out and touch it, we will be doomed. It's very important to find this joy and this heart connection to it. Otherwise, why bother?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. We need a heart connection, and to nature and the trees, and also to each other. I love so much that you share that young person's work, because that's a person thinking about these issues too. And it's a way of bringing that voice in. It's a way of being connected to a community larger than ourselves. We're not there with your student, but you will go back tomorrow and tell them you read this poem to us, and that's really amazing, right? So it's both things, I think, being, and just even the fact that you all came out tonight and that I'm here and that Jack Straw opened its door, like these are opportunities for community, and I think that's where we need to be. Like, it's hard for some of us. I'm a complete introvert. It's very hard, but I think both those things go hand in hand, being with each other and bearing witness and being in it, touching and smelling and writing and sharing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, let's see, what's my last slide? Thank you. That's apropos. Yes, thank you so much for coming and sharing, and I hope that you go home and have prompts and thoughts that you could continue writing into. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. And actually, if you would like me to send you the poems, I could do that. If you want to leave me your emails, I could do that easily. I mean, they're easily, and with the exception of the Irma Pineda poem, which you will not find online. The D.H. Lawrence poem is very easy to find online, and the Mary Oliver poem is, you could find it, no problem. But the Irma Pineda you won't find that one. Yeah. So if you want, I could do that. I could go home and do that very easily. So I'll pass this around. Just make sure your email is clear if you want it home. Yeah, because sometimes I do this and then I go home and I'm like, is this an R or an S? I don't know. And then I feel bad because I've said that I'm going to follow through and I am trying, but I don't know what it is. Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jack Straw, for hosting us and opening up doors. It's really wonderful to be here. I love Jack Straw. Yeah. We should, I should have brought, my last book of poems is an accordion book, and I forgot to put it in my bag. But it's a long poem about a tree, and it just unfolds in this accordion, and it's a lot of it's my own poem. So, but a lot of these topics that we've picked up or addressed tonight are in that poem. Yeah. And I did it by hand, so it has leaf prints that we printed in a press. Yeah, it's really nice looking. I don't think Jack Straw has a copy of the book. Next time I see you, I'll have copies. Hopefully I'll see you again somewhere. And come to the May reading series. It'll be really wonderful. Yeah. What is the first one? Is it May 3rd?
May
Gabriella?
1st.
Yeah, May 1st. Yeah. Yeah.
Claudia,
Yeah.
survey,
Oh, okay. Where is that?
just to mention.
Oh, yes. Okay, so outside, when you go outside, there's a survey from Humanities Washington. And if you could fill it out, that would be great. Yeah. Humanities Watch, yeah,
I'll be putting it in the comments as well, online.
online
Yeah,
for
in the comments.
for today.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you all sign up online to come?
No. Because it's live stream,
Yes.
I'm putting it in the comment section.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yes, so this is being live streamed, and you in the comments and the live stream you could fill out the survey. And those of you who are here, right outside the door, there's a code, and please, you can click with your phone and just fill out the survey. I know Humanities Washington reads this, the feedback. They're very good. Okay, so I'm gonna send poems to all of you. Let me see if I can see this. I can read everybody's. Okay. Yes, I'll send you the poems when I get home.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes. And yeah, be well. Enjoy spring. Thank you for coming out.
Thanks for teaching.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, my pleasure. I love trees and this topic and teaching. All of the things.
Freed you from your drive here stress to
Yes,
talk
it
about
did. It
trees.
did. I actually wrote myself because right before I came, I took my dog on a walk, and the city of Tacoma has planted new seedlings on this path, and it's wonderful. And they put them in